staff of the Institute is finally trained in the latest advancements in medicine.
If it's what you recommend, we trust you.
I assure you, our dear Isabel is in safe hands.
At the Rosewood Institute, we cater to the best families.
Did he send you?
I'm sorry.
Isabel, I apologize for the unorthodox introduction. I'm Dr. Cairnes. Please describe your affliction.
I'm told that my flight's a fancy. You're not becoming of a lady. I just want...
You just want to be free.
Exactly.
I can give you the freedom you desire, but you will need to trust my methods. Unorthodox though they may seem. We'll start with the most primitive of feelings, pain. Even if half of these stories are true, they'll run everything, the courts, the papers, the banks.
You're spending all your time on one girl.
Lead me to my art.
This is still part of my treatment.
Yes, exactly. You do trust me, don't you, Isabel?
Evil must be thy only happiness. Welcome, children, to the communion of your race.
Tell me of this Isabel Porter.
I hope to forget I was ever such a vapid creature.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Build Series. We're here to talk about the Institute, so one more round of applause for Allie and Pamela. That is quite the trailer, guys. Very suspenseful. Congratulations, Pamela. What made you want to do a horror film next? You've done a couple projects before that.
Yeah. The Institute was a cool experiment. James and I, through shooting another movie you did called The Adderall.
The amazing James Franco. So everybody out there who isn't familiar.
Yes. I mean, James is a lot of people. Also, my dad is a James, so do you have to specify? We started going to midnight movies during the filming of a different movie and kind of got into horror and thought, let's try and make a
Does that mean you were watching movies at midnight? Is that what?
Yes, that's when he's available as a non-sleeping individual. Yeah, we would shoot all day and then go to a movie and often fall asleep. But it was great. There's a theater called the Nighthawk in Williamsburg that I love. So we wanted to try doing a horror experiment. We're both very literary, and I was a psych major in college as well. So. Horror films, my favorite horror films are like The Shining, Rosemary's Baby, Misery. The supernatural doesn't really scare me. People scare me. I think people can be incredibly creepy. And this film is based on a true story, which is horrifying because terrible things happen in it. But the Institute is a real place called the Rosewood Institute. The Rosewood Asylum for the Feeble-Minded was its OG title. Built in 1888 and was open for more than 100 years. It actually closed in 2009. Probably not creepy the whole time, but in the 40s at a psychological conference, there was a visiting doctor who sort of blew up what was happening there. There was this big scandal. They were involved in human trafficking and were essentially selling the girls off to their benefactors. And also at the time, psychology was kind of a scary place. I'm really interested in the brain and in memory and identity and personality. It's kind of a recurring theme in a lot of my films. And, it was a dark time in medicine. There's the Kennedy daughter, Rosemary Kennedy, who was lobotomized at a young age for, melancholia and anxiety, like these really normal human things that in 2017 we'd be like, how about a yoga retreat? How about take some time for me? At the time it was like, go to a sanitarium and it's sort of a luxury spa. So people were confused and they would go and then bam, get lobotomized, or just, there were these crazy experiments done in the name of psychology. And so a lot of the things that happen in the film, it's elevated, it is a horror film, it's dramatized, but these are all sort of based on real psychological processes at the time.
And how long did it take for you and James to have the concept and then make it a reality or start making it a reality? How quick was that?
This was James's brainchild, actually. I came on, he was also directing another film while we were shooting it. He was doing a film called The Disaster Artist. So he developed this script with the writers for the most part. It helped, with the final rewrite. And it had kind of a crazy path. It was supposed to be first a television series. And right before we were about to shoot it, we realized the series was not realistic and not going to happen. We didn't have the funds and the time to do it, so it became a pilot. So we were going to shoot this 2-hour pilot. So when we started shooting, we had a 120-page script that we were then going to shoot in 13 days, which we did. So it was kind of a wild shoot, and then the challenge was to figure out how to make it satisfying as a film in case the series never happened, but also sort of leave some doors open. So the actual shoot was very fast. We were shooting, we wrapped a year ago yesterday. So it was pretty quick.
And how did you find Allie, who is so fantastic in the film? Congratulations. Yeah, how did you find Allie to be your star?
Allie knew James from a play that they had done together right around when Adderall Diaries wrapped. And he was like, she's got to do this, she's perfect. So we met for the first time like right before we shot.
Like the day before.
Yeah. So and James had rewritten the script the night before also. Yeah. So it was like we met in this total chaos, but immediately liked each other, and we were like, oh, okay, this is gonna be fine.
I'd be okay.
Yeah.
And Allie, how was the pitch to you?
So when it was still a TV series, I was actually supposed to play a character that was only in the subsequent series, not in the pilot.
Oh,
so she was like, so she was like a nurse that worked under the doctors and kind of like worked her way up. And so I was reading the whole series thinking like, okay, that's my character. But I was also reading the pilot like, well, this Isabel character was like really cool too. That would be like way more fun. And then when they they decided to just try shooting it as a open-ended pilot / feature, I think 4 days before they started filming, James was like, do you want to be the lead in the pilot? I was like, yes, actually.
That's incredible. I mean, so you had done a little bit of the preparation before, but that must have been a bit of a
but
quick
preparation for a completely different part.
Right. So tell me a little about getting ready to play that role.
A lot of it was done on the flight from New York to LA.
It's a long flight.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But luckily, actually, the shooting got pushed back a couple days. So I thought I was like told that I was going to play this part, was going to fly out like 2 days later and then start filming the next day. But then they pushed back shooting, I think 4 days. So I was like, okay, I have like a week at least to like look through the script and learn the lines. And but a lot of the preparation, I love horror movies too, and I love like period pieces, and I'm a huge fan of like Penny Dreadful. So I was really like drawing inspiration from that, and The Awakening, and The Nick, even for all the medical experiments that are not very geared towards the patients. They're more towards like, let's try it out, yeah.
As a comparison to like doing a Broadway show or off-Broadway show, I mean, and then jumping into a horror film where you have to go into that psychology, I mean, what is that like for you as an actor? Is it hard to get out of that at the end of the day, or?
What was hard actually was obviously a play is in sequence and a film is out of sequence, which like is normal, but this character goes through such a transformation and actually takes on many different identities throughout the film. So we had to like track I just like went through the script and marked like, now I am this identity, now I am that identity, now I'm on this drug, now I'm on a stimulant, now I'm on a depressant, and we just like kind of tracked that whole journey. So I had to like remember where I am at the start of every.
Yeah, scene. we had this lengthy cheat sheet that was like, in chronological order of the script, like what is happening to Isabel when, because. The major plot is that Dr. Cairnes, played by James, is a psychiatrist who is into this sort of extreme like drama therapy. So he is convincing the patient that they are actually the character they're playing and that it's real. So she assumes these different identities that are all based on Victorian literature. There are Edgar Allan Poe stories and Nathaniel Hawthorne stories. so we had to track not only when she was in those characters, but also like what happens between them, and how are those sort of blank slate states going to develop as the film goes on.
Yeah.
So we had, when I mark a script as a director, I always have this, document for each scene that's like, where am I coming from? Where am I going? When is it in the script? What are considerations about, psychological state that I'm keeping in mind?
I mean, some of the sets look actually terrifying. I mean, do you ever find yourself like actually getting caught up in the fear of the moment, or was it all very clinical in the acting process?
Well, the set actually was terrifying because it was like what was it? It was like a
that building is so creepy. It is. It was built as a YWCA. It's in downtown LA, by the way. Yeah. So we had that challenge.
Does not look like it at all.
Yeah, we had to shoot very, very quickly. As I said, we could only shoot from 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. every night, and we were confined to this one location. So we did all these micro builds of sets within this place. Like, we essentially had 4 or 5 rooms to work with, and so we just kept rebuilding them, except for one epic night in the woods, which was very cool. Yeah. Allie's naked through the whole thing. Yeah. It was like 40 degrees. You could like see everyone's breath, and I was like, sorry. Yeah.
But there was cake after, so it was fine.
Yeah. So that building was built as a place for young women to live on their own. So, it was built in the 1890s, like a time when women didn't really live away from their family or husband. So this one place was like, for young women who wanted to be young professionals, which was really cool, but it was just intensely creepy. Yeah. And in present day, it's this weird, like, halfway house kind of thing. So it's all like adult dorms. So we would be like shooting these insane torture scenes, and then someone would like flip-flop by with their shower gear.
Yeah. Just like shuffling by.
The weirdest things happen through the whole thing. Like the night, there's this big scene with this like descending pendulum that's based on The Pit and the Pendulum, the Edgar Allan Poe story. And so that whole set was built outside, like in the middle of downtown LA. And we were like just off camera. The way that we shot it was very precise because you move 1 degree in any direction and you're like, oh, skyscraper. So just off frame, there was this crazy car wreck. And so I ran down, a producer ran down, the set medic, we all like ran down there to see if they're okay. And the person who gets out of the car was 100% naked. Like the driver just like stumbled out. This is at 6 a.m. The sun's about to come up. We're all like cracked out from shooting all night. This guy just like stumbles out, and then the woman who's in the car with him was totally dressed. It was like just a bizarre situation. We're like, whoa. And they looked up and were like, whoa.
Some interesting behind the scenes stuff there to be mined, that's for sure.
Everyone in their like cult robes. There's fire.
And we were creeped out by the people who actually lived there, who would just like pop their head out or like start screaming randomly or like get in fights with each other. But I was like, what must it be like for them for us to be in their home, basically, just having like creepy people walking around with like knives fashioned from like wolf paws and
Did you guys get to like lighten the mood at all after when you guys wrapped at these 6 a.m. things, or was it straight to bed? Or,
I mean, we had a great time. That's the thing, I think. Even on really heavy movies or scary movies, it's never really like that on set.
Unless it's The Shining.
Yeah.
Unless you
maybe I should up the ante in the like.
Yeah, just like throw things at me to get authentic scared reactions.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was fun.
Were you able to detach from that? Were you able to fall asleep after shooting something like that with a pendulum?
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I would just like fall asleep watching Netflix every night, but it was hard to kind of like detach from it because I was like in this Airbnb that was like nearby, and actually one time we wrapped around like 5 a.m, and I was like totally zonked out. We'd done this like really hard shoot, and I was driving back to my Airbnb and I got pulled over, and the cop was like, you put your turn signal on, or you didn't turn, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. He started like shining a light in my eyes, and he was like, where were you just now, and where are you going? I was like, I'm going to my Airbnb, and I started getting nervous, and like, I don't really drive, I live in New York, I don't know how to do this, I'm sorry. And he was like, what do you have in your car, and where are you coming from? I was like, I'm coming from a shoot. He was like, oh, that explains the your eyes look so, I was like, oh, I had this like dark makeup under my eyes to make me look gaunt, and like I looked like I hadn't slept in like 5
He thought
days.
you were a zombie.
Yeah.
He was like, I found a zombie.
Out or something. Yeah, exactly.
Pamela, I mean, you've worked with James before, obviously The Color of Time and Adderall Diaries, which
Yeah.
premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, obviously. What was it like directing him and then co-directing with him? I mean, what is that process like when he's in the scene, but he's also a director? I mean, what's that relationship like?
It's interesting. I really love being just a director. I think it would be incredibly hard to do both at the same time. But I do think there's a really interesting advantage to being a director-actor. And one of those is that you get to see other directors all the time, which is something I don't really get to see. You don't really get a window into what that looks like. So it's interesting for me it was cool to try co-directing. It's tricky, and I think probably everyone who does that has a different process. For him, because he was acting, he wasn't on set when he wasn't acting. So there were some days that just I was directing, and when he was on set, we have naturally kind of have different interests and priorities. So it was cool. There was like a nice flow. I would mention things, he would mention things. And a lot of the prep work he had done. So he did the casting, had kind of a look in mind that we were working on together. But I did all the post. So it was interesting. For this one in particular, it was kind of a division of labor. And when we were on set together, it was really nice to have someone to bounce ideas off.
And Allie, what was the difference for you, acting alongside the director? And also, I mean, you had done Indubious Battle, right, with James as well. So can you explain a little bit about the difference between those shoots and those sets?
And which director you like better?
There we go. Throw it down. Well, James isn't here, so...
I can say whatever I want behind his back. I had never really... Actually, that's a lie. I did do one other film with him where he was acting and directing at the same time. And he does kind of like compartmentalize. I think his director brain is always working, but when he's in a scene with you, he's not like, do this different. That was bad. Or like, yeah, more like this. When he's acting with you, he really is like there for you as an actor, and he might like sneak behind camera and be like, Pam, tell her to do that. I don't know. I didn't like see the inner workings of it, but he is very good about when he's the actor, when he's your scene partner, he's your scene partner, and he's there for you. And when he's the director, like, you understand where the roles lie.
In an Indubious Battle, what was that experience like? Obviously, amazing cast, and
Incredible.
Same collaborators as this, Scott Hayes and some of the actors. Tell me a little bit about that film.
That was just the location was incredible. We were in this huge field, and there are hundreds of I'd never seen that many extras in one shot before. There's like all these like Depression era extras that were like, and all these like ratty children running around with like perfect dirt like smeared on their face. And but he had like a different style directing that than he did this. It was much more loose. He would do takes where you just acted out the whole scene but with no words. And it was a little more like experimental maybe because he had a little more time to play with than the Institute. But yeah, it's always, every experience I've had acting while he's directing has been very different, which is cool.
And Pamela, I mean, there's such an incredible cast in this as well, obviously. Eric Roberts and Josh Duhamel. I mean, tell me a little bit about bringing these guys in. I'm sure they're in there for a couple of days, so getting acclimated to the set and to the story. I mean, what was it like finding these guys? And I'm sure there's some great stories there. Yeah,
well, the casting, again, was really James's call. It was kind of his vision, and I was there to help him. But, everyone was great. I think it's a crazy thing to ask someone to do, to be like, can you show up the day that you're gonna do this with no previous prep or conversation? And it happens so fast. I think that is kind of a curse upon indie film in general, is that you don't really get to rehearse. Prep time is so limited, but this one in particular happened so quickly with so little prep. So you're just really asking people to show up and be game to do something. So it's really cool to. It's amazing to have someone trust you that much and just watch people go make big decisions and go with it and be fine if it doesn't work and you try something else. Scott Hayes is one of my favorite actors. I loved working
He's so
with him.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
on Broadway here in New York, and then obviously in the films. Yeah. Tell me a
Yeah,
little bit
yeah,
about
and
that.
he's so versatile. He's like this human Swiss Army knife, and he finds really specific physical behaviors. So I can't really give anything away, but his character is interesting, and
The character of Gunther. Yeah.
the character
yeah.
of Gunther, yeah. So he was like, developing his voice and his walk and like what his hair would look like. And, as long as it's not opposed to some vision, I really like actors to be able to pick that kind of stuff. So like, James wanted this mustache and Scott has these crazy mutton chops. Like everyone went a little crazy with the facial hair.
It was great.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It was on point. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
And it's, it's just cool to see how that, like if you have a fake mustache on, it sort of affects how your face feels, and made me realize sometimes there's this like mustache formal speech thing that so often goes together in period films, and I was like, oh, a lot of that is maybe because you like
Stiff upper
to
lip.
like hold your lip. Yeah, so it's so cool to see someone develop a character and see when they put on a particular pair of shoes that's intentionally a little uncomfortable and changes their walk. Like I love understanding how actors build characters and to do it with them. I mean, that's a huge part of why I direct, is that it's amazing to have that degree of empathy and to understand how much of like what you put on and how your body feels and how your mind works changes how you see the world and how you operate in it. So I love the character building stuff. It's so much fun.
And especially with this film, when we have like the Victorian costumes.
Costumes are amazing. Yeah. Who did the costumes? Yeah.
David Page, who has been a costumer for years. He worked with James, which is how they met. But he worked with Marlon Brando and Robert Redford. So he, in Dubious Battle, was his first film as a costume designer.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and this was his second. So it was like, here's the deep end, shove. He did a great job, and it's intense work to have the clothes be period correct, but also appropriate to the character. And I love that he did that too. Like even if you couldn't tell, you couldn't see the corset, he would have you guys in these like undergarments that were period appropriate, and I think it changes things, right?
Oh, absolutely. Because I have terrible posture, and then as soon as you're in a corset, you're like, oh, that like you become that character who is also has to be rigid all the time, not just because of the corset, but because of what women are expected to be, like beautiful dolls that are there to be admired, and you're like, oh, this just adds another layer of complexity to this. And then when all that is stripped away, how the character changes too.
That's fascinating. Well, there's some questions out there, I think, in the audience right there.
Cool.
Hi, ladies. Thanks for being here. Congrats on the film. Looks amazing. I was just wondering, with the Oscars coming up on Sunday, are there any films or performances that got you particularly excited or inspired this season?
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Moonlight.
Yeah, same.
I think it's a perfect film. I saw it, I belong to a critics circle, which is very fun, called the National Board of Review, and get to see movies early. So I think I saw it back in like maybe late September, early October, and was just blown away, like so engaged and engrossed. And then afterwards was walking by myself and just like burst into tears and had so much to unpack. I think that's another film about identity, and I was just so touched by being able to see cinematically how the people we've been still live inside us in this deep way, and how there are events and people that come along that will then sort of re-trigger those people. I thought it was so beautiful. I also loved American Honey. That was my other favorite.
Oh, I didn't see American Honey. Yeah, I loved Moonlight too. I loved, coming from a theater background, I loved that it felt like a 3-act structure of a play, and that you really see the actors making specific choices. I feel like those 3 actors must have spent like so much time together just to be able to nail this look that they all have in their eyes, this like stillness that they all possess, or it was just brilliant casting. But that through line was really moving too. Yeah, I saw it with my friends, and they were like, let's grab beers afterwards. I was like, I can't. I need to sit in a dark room and like cry.
It's appropriate reaction. Yeah. Okay, next question right there.
Hey, Pamela and Allie. TGIF, we made it. Super excited to have you here. I'm really excited for the Institute. It seems like an awesome film. So my question is, I know the film deals with elements of brainwashing. Have you ever felt in your life that you've ever been brainwashed? And if so, what was it? I know for me, it's every time I go to Las Vegas and see the lights, I'm like, Take all my money.
Yeah. Yes, I actually think that happens in subtle ways all the time, which is something that I was trying to talk about in Adderall Diaries. The more you recall any memory, the more inaccurate it is. So the fundamental things that feel like huge identity-forming moments or relationships, your mom, your first lover, whatever these things are, the ones that are the most important to us are the ones that change the most. So I actually think that our identities and our minds are pretty malleable, more so than we want to admit. And we often do most of the brainwashing ourselves. There's like an identity that you want to have, even if it doesn't make sense. Like a lot of people get stuck in a victim thing. And so you selectively are picking pieces from your life to tell that story. But yes, Vegas is also a really brainwashy feeling. I agree.
Yeah, it becomes a story that you tell yourself. And I did a movie with James that was a kind of like a similar structure to this, and this like girl gets sucked into this like all powerful man that she like looks up to and starts to like trust entirely, and he subtly brainwashes her and makes her lose her identity, and then she gains it back for herself. But for that movie, I did a lot of research into cults, and what I found interesting is that like you think of people who are easily brainwashed or easily like led into cults as just like dumb or sheep, but a lot of them are actually like higher than average intelligence, and I think it's because they're like searching for something, and they're open to something that will say, here's hope, here's something that will make your life better, and they're willing to try that, and that's kind of what I brought to this character at least too.
Great. And one last question right there.
Hey, thank you for being here. Who inspired you to pursue directing and acting respectively?
I actually have a really immediate answer for that. You know, I have some influences. I didn't grow up thinking I'd be a filmmaker. That's not really a Minnesotan thing to do. And didn't know what a director even did for many years of watching the Oscars, being like, I liked that movie. What does that mean, director? Who is that person? So I was inspired by Hitchcock movies and Truffaut and all those film schooly things, as between like pre-med classes and my psych major, I would try and squeeze in some film things and acting things. But I was sitting in a theater watching The Motorcycle Diaries and in Minneapolis, and had this like immediate feeling I'm living entirely the wrong life. I should go. And so I left my whole life behind, moved to New York, started making a movie for fun, and just totally never went back. That was my new life.
I don't have a story as inspiring as that, but I don't know. I always did acting. I was in plays and singing and dancing ever since I was like a little kid, and my mom raised me on old movies and movie musicals, and I do distinctly remember watching Audrey Hepburn, just being like, she has this thing that is so different from like the kind of showy like 40s and 50s movies that I was watching. This thing where she's just like so still and present. I was like, that I'm like drawn to that. I don't know why. I don't want to do that.
Well, guys, absolutely check out the Institute out March 3rd. And congratulations, guys. Thanks so much for being here. Pamela and Allie.
Thanks, everyone.